Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about my top 3 tips for new therapists. This was most recently asked by a psychology student, so I'm going to get into that. I have a couple clients who are new therapists or students, so this is a great topic, and I really had to think about my top tips, and I've narrowed it to 3. So let's jump in. So my top 3 tips for new therapists. This is definitely something that has unfolded and has changed for me over the years as I've looked at what's really important and what advice I would really give to my younger self for new therapists, right? So my first tip would be do your own work, get your own therapy, do your stuff. A lot of therapists don't do this, and I think it should be a requirement, honestly. And it was a part of my program from the jump in my master's degree program. Said that weird. My master's program. We were required to do our own therapy, to be a participant and a facilitator. And I feel like, why isn't that required, right? A person who is going to be able to help you the most as a therapist is going to be somebody who has done their own work, who's been through their own struggles, who has tried all of this stuff, who has figured out what works for them, what doesn't, what they like in therapy, what they don't like. That is crucial, right? Crucial for so many reasons. I think this also is a very stressful field, and dealing with everyone's darkness and dark sides and pain and trauma and grief, man, it's heavy. And so if we also don't have ways to ground back into what we believe and calm and take care of ourselves, we will not make it. You will not be successful. You will not be happy. You just won't be very effective in your life or for the people that you are working with, right? For your clients. So my number 1 thing is get your own therapy, do your own work, take care of yourself. I'm gonna roll take care of yourself into that. I really probably should have made it a 4th, self-care, but I'm gonna roll it into all of that. Like, that's gonna be all one thing for me, is to take care of yourself, do your own work, all of that. Obviously, like, clients are gonna feel differently than you. Like if I have depression and I worked through it, I'm not gonna use that same experience for all my clients, but it's gonna give me a better idea, right? It's gonna help me understand and see things from their perspective a little better, or try different things. I always do not all of them, but a lot of the activities that I give people, I do them myself. So like on my course, I just blanked on the name of my own damn course. How to become more happy, motivated, confident, gain coping skills course. All of those activities I have done myself, and I've done multiple times, most of them, right? So like if we're working through how to find our own values and settle back into what we really believe, I've done all that. I know what that's like. I know what I like with it. I know what I don't like with it. I can give you different tips from my own experience of doing those activities and from the feedback of clients. So it just offers you a way bigger picture of how to do things, and I just feel like you're more effective, you're more confident in yourself actually, right? Because if you have to practice what you preach, if you don't understand how things work or you don't really believe in things, then how are you going to help other people do it? And a lot of this plays into these other things too. So I'm going to get into the next ones. So the next one that I think is really important is to get as much experience as you possibly can. And the good thing about most programs is they require 1, 2, or more internships. So that's going to give you a lot of experience. But you want to work with as many people and as many companies and as many everything as you can. Try out different modalities, sit in on a DBT group and a CBT group and a 12-step group and a parent group, like just try to get as much experience as you can and learn from people. Watch how people conduct their groups or conduct therapy. Just get as much experience as you can. Work with as many different populations as you can, because they're all going to offer something different. Our field is so huge and so diverse that no one can be an expert or experienced in everything. It's impossible. But we really need to get a broad training ground. And then if you want to like specifically work with small populations, that's great. But you still need experience and training in the big old picture. And even within different things. So like substance abuse, for instance. I started working a lot in substance abuse. And every kind of facet that I worked in was really different within substance abuse, right? So there's people that really adhere to kind of the 12-step model. There's like a whole drug-assisted methadone arm that I also worked in, and that looks different for kind of the general public and like private methadone clinics, right? Those look really different. Treatment centers look really different if they're state funded or if they're private funded, all of that. It looks so different. Even within that one substance abuse arm, there's tons of different things that you can get into and look at, and obviously tons of different substances too. But there's so much experience to gain within each arm. And I'm really happy that I have done a lot of the work that I have. So now I work mostly with self-pay, private clients, but I've worked in homeless shelters and I've worked in nonprofits and I've done social work, in Costa Rica and in Ecuador and in South Africa. I've done all these things and they've looked so different, right, in each of these countries and with each of these populations. But all of that has made me a better therapist for the people that I work with and what I do every day. We want to broaden our perspective as much as we can, because when we get locked into a certain perspective, that doesn't help anything in this work. We really want to gain as much understanding and knowledge as bloody possible. So get as much experience as you can, volunteer, do just all the things. And I think I really like this field because we're able to do that, and it actually makes you better. My resume is so all over the place as far as what I've done and where I've worked and who I've worked with, but it makes me way better at what I do. Whereas in other fields that may look a little crazy, but not in this. This makes us way better. If we've only worked with one tiny population, then we're really not that effective. So I think that's really cool, and I like that. But you have to really work sometimes to get the experience that you need and just keep getting it too. Don't ever stop learning or trying or trying out new things and new modalities. Yeah, so that's that one. And the last one, which I feel like is so important, and I was not as good at as I am now by any means, something that I get better at every year, but it is to be real, to be authentic. And that is a really hard thing in our field, because you don't want to be sharing all of your stuff necessarily, right? It's not about you. You shouldn't be turning any therapy session into anything about you. You should never talk about things that you haven't processed for yourself. If you're going through a divorce, you can't talk about that for yourself, especially if you haven't processed it. That's just not okay. So the boundaries within this are incredibly important. Having good boundaries could not be more important. And again, that could be a whole separate category. I could have had my top 10 things for advice for this, but we're gonna roll in be real and authentic with healthy boundaries into one. All those pieces are really important. But I think this is something that I was scared of at first. When I first started working with people, I didn't talk about myself at all. I didn't say anything. I didn't, if I drew on my own experience, I didn't say it directly or anything. I was really closed off to that. And there's a layer of that that's important in our work, right? But that also can come off as cold and not authentic. So there's this dance that we need to do with being very genuine and authentic and sharing pieces of our journey and ourselves while also keeping it focused on them and not sharing too much. It's tricky, right? It's a lot more tricky than it even sounds, but it's so important. And I think one of the biggest pieces for me in being able to do this was being comfortable with myself and my mistakes, and that I don't know everything. I don't have to be this all-knowing, guru god that people come to and I just fix all their problems. That's not what we are. And if we try to be that, then people are going to know that that's not real and it's not going to feel right to them. But if we're real and we're genuine, and if we don't know something, we say, I really don't know that, or I don't have the answer to that, or I don't have a lot of experience with that, but this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to find this out, or let's both look into this more and talk more about it next time, or, what do you think about that? How would you go about figuring that out? Like, there's so many ways we could do it, but we don't want to pretend to know things or be things that we aren't. We want to be really real with that. And if we don't have the answers, we don't have the answers. If we don't know, that it's better to say you don't know than to pretend like you do know. And it's okay to draw on your struggles, but they need to be struggles that you've worked through and that you're okay to talk about and that you're able to talk about without making it about yourself. So, this is something that I found in working through this and that I've struggled with in working through this. But if people ask you, well, have you ever been through that yourself? Or is that something you've been through? Or however, they ask you, you can answer that genuinely. But again, it needs to be something that you really kind of practice and prep to answer. If you're actively suicidal, obviously you probably shouldn't be doing therapy in that moment. You should be taking care of yourself, but you shouldn't be sharing that. But you could draw on that experience, right? It's great to draw on our experience. I struggled with this myself, and these are some of the things that helped me. And your journey is going to be really different. None of these may apply to you, but I want to give you all the resources that I can that have helped me specifically and that have helped my clients. And if none of these work for you, we're going to keep working till we find other things, right? Things like that are okay to say. But we really just want to be genuine. Like, people can smell inauthenticity, if that's even a word, from a mile away, right? People can tell when you're not authentic, and people can really tell when you are authentic and when you're genuine. And if you come from a place of actually really caring about someone, that's what matters. I care about you, I see you, I am here for you, right? I don't have to have all the answers, but I'm here to work through and find them and support you and love you along the way. Love you unconditionally along the way. Those are powerful, powerful things. So it's not about having all the answers. I'm going off on this, I know. But it's about being real. Real within having boundaries. Having boundaries, honestly, is another hard thing that I have worked through and gotten better at and still need to continue getting better at for sure as I go along this. But I think we also get into this field and we want to help so much that sometimes we end up giving too much and giving too much time or energy, and then we end up depleted and resentful and upset and just not as effective. We have to have boundaries around that. We have to have boundaries around our time and our energy, what questions we will answer, what questions we won't answer, all of that. And that's incredibly important. We can't last in this field without healthy boundaries, like really healthy boundaries. And clients are going to push that sometimes. And that's hard, especially if you're someone like me. I sometimes am more of a people pleaser at times, and it's hard for me sometimes to have people like upset or pushing boundaries with me, or like really wanting more time or needing more time too, right? Sometimes clients drop really intense things at the end of a session, and you have to still end that with them and try to make sure that they're safe and taken care of course, right? But we can't spend hours on the phone with one person when we have back-to-back sessions and things to do and all of that, right? So those things are really important to practice and to keep practicing and to get support from, and keep working on setting those boundaries and show clients that how to do it. Like, some of my clients who push my boundaries the most aren't good at holding those for themselves either. And so me talking about that and working on that, and even sometimes sharing hey, these boundaries are hard for me too, but this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm working on that, and this is what this boundary looks like for me. So I talk about it directly. And people usually really like that, and they respect it a lot more if they understand, like, okay, yeah, that's what she's doing, and this is important. And it shows them that that's how they do it, right? So it's modeling for them healthy boundaries. Because again, the people that push those the most don't have healthy boundaries. And they need help with that. They need to know what that feels like. They need to understand that when I set a boundary with them, it may be upsetting for them and they may feel hurt, but I am still here and I actually do care about them, and I'm gonna keep being there for them, and I'm gonna keep being there for them in this way that's consistent and doesn't change, and they know what to expect and they know where the lines are. And that is really healthy for them, especially if that's something that they've never had in another relationship. They can then use that to model their own boundaries and to work on their own boundaries within their relationships. Because the therapeutic relationship is a safe place to practice things and work on things and feel things out and talk about things that maybe we can't talk about directly, and then take that and apply it to our own lives and work on things in our own relationships. And that's a perfect example of that. So if you aren't holding good boundaries, or you're not taking care of yourself, or you're not being authentic, you're modeling the wrong way to do something for your client, which is not okay and can cause harm, which is our oath, right? Cause no harm. So we have to be working on those things for ourselves so we can show them, hey, this is what that looks like. This is what a healthy relationship looks like. This is what working with someone and dealing with someone who respects themselves and respects you looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what your other relationship should feel like. So anyway, all of that is really important, and we're modeling all of this for our clients. So those are my tips. As you can see, I could go on and on with more tips, but I tried to narrow it down to 3. It's kind of more 5. But they are: get therapy, do your own work, get as much experience as you possibly can, and keep getting it forever. And be real, be authentic, while also maintaining your boundaries, okay? And self-care, that's in there too. So all of those things are so important. So what do you think? Do you really like some of these? Would you add others in? If you are a therapist, what would you add in as you're training to be a therapist? What is coming up for you that you're like, oh, I know this will be important for me, or hey, I know this is an area that I'm gonna need to work on, because we all have areas that we need to work on. And that's normal. Like, I say that to my clients. None of us are perfect. We all have our own issues, and we all have our own struggles, and we're all working on things. And maybe I've practiced this a lot more than you have, and maybe you're just starting out, and that's fine. We can all support each other and learn from each other and grow. So that's kind of what is cool about this too, is you guys can share what works for you and what doesn't, and we can give each other ideas. Man, self-care and boundaries for therapists and healers and helpers, it's hard. It's really hard for sure. So comment, reach out to me if you have follow-up questions or any other questions. You can comment below, you can email me, you can write me on my website, true2counseling.com. If you want to work with me, you can also reach out about that. I do online support, messaging, calls, all of that stuff. So reach out to me if you need help, and comment if you want to, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. That really helps me out. And if you want to see when new videos come out, you can click the bell and it will alert you when new videos come out. But if you don't want those alerts, then don't click the bell and you can still subscribe, and then just choose to come in when you want to. So either way is great for me. I really appreciate all of you, and I appreciate your time and everything. Anyway, I am done. I'm gonna stop myself from going off. All right, guys, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.